Bishop Nathaniel Young, he sent you to wake up the people and tell them come out of the church, come out of the church. He ready for war, soon as they run and get out of the dirt, out of the dirt, ayy. Shout out one, shout out one, shout out one, Tuesday. Shout out one, shout out one, shout out one, Tuesday.
Got the juice, I ain't talking no bootleg, cause we walk in the light of a new day. I can't listen to nothing a fool say. Thank the Lord that he showed us a new way.
Shout out one, shout out one, shout out one, Tuesday. Shout out one, shout out one, shout out one, Tuesday.
Got the juice, I ain't talking no bootleg, cause we walk in the light of a new day. I can't listen to nothing a fool say. Thank the Lord that he showed us a new way.
Them man thought they're winning this war, but they're really not. Sons of God, yeah, we're really tough. Them man thought we meet defeat, nah, they really flop. And I don't like to repeat my soul so the DJ can wheel it up.
He put in the work. Bishop Nathaniel, yeah, he a prophet sent back to the earth, back to the earth. He sent you to wake up the people and tell them come out of the church, come out of the church. He ready for war, soon as they run and get out of the dirt, out of the dirt, ayy. Shout out one, shout out one, shout out one, Tuesday. Shout out one, shout out one, shout out one, Tuesday.
Got the juice, I ain't talking no bootleg, cause we walk in the light of a new day. I can't listen to nothing a fool say. Thank the Lord that he showed us a new way.
Shout out one, shout out one, shout out one, Tuesday. Shout out one, shout out one, shout out one, Tuesday.
Got the juice, I ain't talking no bootleg, cause we walk in the light of a new day. I can't listen to nothing a fool say. Thank the Lord that he showed us a new way.
Them man thought they're winning this war, but they're really not. Sons of God, yeah, we're really top. Them man thought we meet defeat, nah, they really flop. And I don't like to repeat my soul so the DJ can wheel it up. Keeping the laws, better shout out. Christ is black, better shout out. Hitting the streets, teaching the peeps, crying aloud, we shout out. They type by screen, you'll see them in streets. Man would've thought they ain't allowed out. Man ain't let you don't bow out. Christ is king, better bow down.
Bow that knee and the lines get stamped. Brothers in purple, golden girdle, yeah, with the lions in the camp. Bringing out all this truth, better put all that oil in your lamp. Christ is the king, never gonna lose, yeah, call him the champ. When you get that milk, yeah, we're giving them laws. Spiritual food, meat well done, but with the truth, yeah, we're giving it raw. Give me that Bible, give me that sword. Just like the Romans, they taught us a new way. Run from the church, come to the truth, and I shout out Tuesday.
He put in the work. Bishop Nathaniel, yeah, he a prophet sent back to the earth, back to the earth. He sent you to wake up the people and tell them come out of the church, come out of the church. He ready for war, soon as they run and get out of the dirt, out of the dirt. Shout out one, shout out one, shout out one, Tuesday. Shout out one, shout out one, shout out one, Tuesday.
Got the juice, I ain't talking no bootleg, cause we walk in the light of a new day. I can't listen to nothing a fool say. Thank the Lord that he showed us a new way.
Shout out one, shout out one, shout out one, Tuesday. Shout out one, shout out one, shout out one, Tuesday.
Got the juice, I ain't talking no bootleg, cause we walk in the light of a new day. I can't listen to nothing a fool say. Thank the Lord that he showed us a new way.
Showed us a new way. Teach every week plus this house every Tuesday. Keeping these laws, that's our doing. Pray to the Lord that he choose me. He been surviving these devilish times, trying to hunt down and seduce me. Scripturally armed, so I'm loading it up, setting it off like a Uzi. We put in the work, to the ground man go. Catch my bros, just put in the dirt. Bishop and family be teaching our people all over the world. Organisation be back and we patient, it's time to get healed.
Cut 'em up and buck 'em up. Settle down when we step up. You're humble down. You shut them up. They turn and run when the scriptures come. You burn them up. Come for the shout out, stay for the word, man, to see what's what. Don't cut the beat, Jalil, bring it back, let them feel that drop. Tell Pastor Port Belly, feel them chops. 1, 2 Galatians, can't save the nations. I get exposed when I unload, I'm leaning drop.
He put in the work. Bishop Nathaniel, yeah, he a prophet sent back to the earth, back to the earth. He sent you to wake up the people and tell them come out of the church, come out of the church. He ready for war, soon as they run and get out of the dirt, out of the dirt. Shout out one, shout out one, shout out one, Tuesday. Shout out one, shout out one, shout out one, Tuesday.
Got the juice, I ain't talking no bootleg, cause we walk in the light of a new day. I can't listen to nothing a fool say. Thank the Lord that he showed us a new way.
Shout out one, shout out one, shout out one, Tuesday. Shout out one, shout out one, shout out one, Tuesday.
Got the juice, I ain't talking no bootleg, cause we walk in the light of a new day. I can't listen to nothing a fool say. Thank the Lord that he showed us a new way. whole creation, waiting on the manifestation of the sons of God, the saints patient. In the spiritual war until the spiritual powers get it down, then we gon' make nations bow. Beat in the dust and powder. Crawl on your belly like a serpent, coward. No Scarface, this earth is ours. Fogging on heads like the turf was flowers. Walls of the city, they great and hot. I go up and down, it's a close encounter. Prophecies I see fulfilled. We lifted up the banner on this here mountain. John 7:38, rivers and fountains flowing through the city like a pyramid bounty. Going through the city just to seal them. County, that's a lost penny on the ground. 2020 blitz, give me on fish. So a net catch 153 big fish. Living me a stone, turn around they necktie. Still trying to see, did it sink that quick? Be a street bullet, stronghold, pull it down, boost to the ground. Rank skin forward. And if you at home, sleep what you in this for. Cause it ain't no peace till we win this war. 2020 blitz, give me on fish. So a net catch 153 big fish. Living me a stone, turn around they necktie. Still trying to see, did it sink that quick? Be a street bullet, stronghold, pull it down, boost to the ground. Rank skin forward. And if you at home, sleep what you in this for. Cause it ain't no peace till we win this war.
Real recognize real and they unfamiliar. Brothers fold like dollar bills for 30 pieces of silver. I ain't got no hatred for you, your own works will kill you. You'll sin now and pay later cause the Lord will bill you. That's enough, I'm about to head to Memphis. I'm done addressing these false brothers, they so pretentious. Our people dying, they need prophets to bring the census. The cost of sin is your life and that's too expensive. Christ paid it with his life, he paid those expenses. But only for the Israelites who follow repentance. For these preachers still lying, ain't no happy ending. I'm Gary Payton with the gospel, I'm set to defend it. The deacon put the order out, so I'm on the mission. A lot of brothers on the couch just scratching and itching. Rolling round like a door swinging on the hinges. And if the shoe fits, I hope they get offended.
Not no more. Not no more. Who's the king? Who's the king? What time is it? What time?
And if you at home, sleep what you in this for. Cause it ain't no peace till we win this war.
Yeah, we got that fire, so don't run from the scripts. They get the gun from your hip, get hit with the fire. Not the fire that come from a clip, but the fire that come from my lips. And we ready to blaze. When that alarm erupt, that mean it's time that we armor up. Yeah, these just be really thinking they harming us. But our God won't allow them to tarnish us. They gon' honor us, so we advise them to let go. It was awesome from the get-go. It'll be the Omega when they see that purple and gold with the boots on the ground like a step show. Echo, let's go, take over the planet. Just as long as the Lord behind us, these heathens can't stand it. And we gon'
blitz, give me on fish. So a net catch 153 big fish. Living me a stone, turn around they necktie. Still trying to see, did it sink that quick? Be a street bullet, stronghold, pull it down, boost to the ground. Rank skin forward. And if you at home, sleep what you in this for. Cause it ain't no peace till we win this war. 2020 blitz, give me on fish. So a net catch 153 big fish. Living me a stone, turn around they necktie. Still trying to see, did it sink that quick? Be a street bullet, stronghold, pull it down, boost to the ground. Rank skin forward. And if you at home, sleep what you in this for. Cause it ain't no peace till we win this war.
Nice to meet you, Mr. War and Peace. Tell me one thing, how do we war in peace? The lions roaring while they sleep and count sheep. Kings and priests, I'd rather chill and sip the grape's blood. But the word of God is sitting on my taste buds. Got this little light of mine, I let it shine like the new moon. Not your average Jew dude, this brute food. The man of war fed me manna. Now I'm ready, this ain't playtime. But Blitz pulled a hit stick, Mike Vick to a K9.
Calling all soldiers from the SIP to California. From the bottom of the map to the desert, Arizona. Here to prophesy of war, famine, pestilence like Rona. You a goner if you ain't willing to mortify your members. Make them quiver, cause it ain't no peace. You looking at your priest, no more hiding in the corner. We in your face on Beale Street. Now feel me when I say you better repent, or that's the end of your existence. We blitzing 2020 down in Tennessee, Memphis.
Give me your fish, so a net catch 153 big fish. Living me a stone, turn around they necktie. Still trying to see, did it sink that quick? Be a street bullet, stronghold, pull it down, boost to the ground. Rank skin forward. And if you at home,
time. I think it's time.
Power hour. It's the what? Power hour. It's the who? Power hour. Yeah. Blacks, Hispanics, and natives. Power hour. It's the what? Power hour. It's the who? Power hour. Yeah. Blacks, Hispanics. Every Saturday morning, you need to be tuning in. Wake up, get crust out your eyes. We about to go live, so come get the schooling in. About our oppression, we answer the questions like how do we get out this lower state? We let the scripts prophesy. We bringing the Bible to life so that you relate. The world thinks we're rejects, but that word we reject. Watch and we'll show you. precept upon precept, line upon line, the script say we're the greatest, and they can't debate it. Salvation is only for the blacks, Hispanics, and natives. Power, power, it's the what? Power, hour, it's the who? Power, hour, yeah. Blacks, Hispanics, and natives. Power, hour, it's the what? Power, hour, it's the who? Power, hour, yeah. Blacks, Hispanics, and power, hour, it's the what? Power, hour, it's the who? Power, hour, yeah. Blacks, Hispanics, and natives. Power, hour, it's the what? Power, hour, it's the who? Power, hour, yeah. Blacks, Hispanics, and
Shalom, shalom. Welcome to the Power Hour Plus edition. I am Captain Joshua.
Shalom, good evening, Captain Aparium.
Shalom, Soldier Caleb.
Welcome, Soldier. You've done the Plus with us before, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. What's your second time? Third?
Third. Yes,
Third
sir.
time? Okay, all right. Welcome back. Shalom to the 12 tribes scattered abroad. We are back in the studio. Lord's will, we'll have a good topic for you. Obviously there's always stuff to talk about, man. I mean, you talk about the latter days and biblical prophecy. There's definitely a lot of fodder out there, I guess, so to speak. But I want to continue to try to narrow our focus. I mean, I keep a running list of like topics and stuff. It's tough with current events because you kind of want to jump on them right away. But what's nice is that we actually have 2 slots for the show. So I know you, Captain Aparium, you pick up a lot of the news cycle on Saturdays. So that's good. We might briefly talk about Afghanistan today, but only to show similarities of U.S. foreign policy behavior. But we're talking about Santo Domingo today. Yeah. Right? Listen, I'm sure there's a lot. Listen. More than half the audience does not know what Santo Domingo is. They like, where in Mexico is that?
Bruh.
That's what are you gonna
The
say?
hell is this?
You got the face there.
Is that St. Thomas?
Is that St. Which U.S. Virgin Island is that? Oh man,
It's almost as bad as Puerto Rico, right?
Yeah, it's true.
probably
No,
worse.
and listen, I don't blame our people. I don't blame our brothers and sisters when it comes to that stuff. Because, the bubble of America and how they put stuff out there, y'all thought before this truth that probably all Hispanics was Mexicans.
The hell is this?
Hey.
Or white.
Right, or white. Hey, a lot of you Southern Kingdom, I love my Southern Kingdom. Actually, 2 of my top favorite tribes are from the Southern Kingdom. And no, I love Judah, but they're not in the top 2. Okay, I love Judah. They're not in the top 2. My top 2 are the other 2 Southern Kingdom tribes. Hey, I grew up with Judah, man. I love Judah to the max.
Hey, some Judites thought Lenny Kravitz was Judah.
Right. Lenny Kravitz is the Edomite of Edomites. Right.
Kravitz.
Right. If you put me next to Lenny Kravitz, you would choose, and you didn't understand the Bible, you would choose Lenny Kravitz all day. And you would be wrong. He is not Israel. Kravitz is named
some milk.
Amalek. Pops is
Hey,
Amalek.
man, look up his pops one day, brothers and sisters. That's why he means it's the Amalek. He's more Esau of Esau.
Right.
His mom is Judah.
Yes.
His mom was the wife of the, ironically, right?
Right. Hey,
the wife of the Edomite on the Jeffersons.
You would look at Wentworth Miller and think he's Edom, and he's Judah. His father looks like Shaft. We've gone over that on the show. But anyway, my point is,
it's on the screen cap.
Right.
That's Lenny Kravitz.
That's Lenny
pops.
Kravitz pops. Cy Kravitz.
Hey, wait, they may not believe it. They may be thinking we're putting the freaking the cream cheese guy
There
up
it
there
is.
with the bagels.
There's Lenny Kravitz.
There they go,
dad.
with mama.
Look, wait, do that. Yeah, do that. They have it in the lower left. The one where he's with his pops. Yeah, right in the middle. I'm sorry, in the middle. Sorry, I'm at the middle one. Hey, that's him. Oh, look, that's his pops. That's pops.
The hell is this? And up there's the parent. That's them when he was born.
Yeah, put that one. The one when he was born. Look at that. That's his pops. But anyway, I'm not gonna go off on that. hey, there's a lot of Southern Kingdom that they think Spanish food. And when I see the little food rankings, and they're like, oh, yeah, Judah food is the best food, and yeah, Benji food is the best food.
You gonna go there?
And I'm like, yo, they're like, yeah, Northern Kingdom food's not that great. What, you had tacos? I mean, listen, tacos are delicious, all right, especially if you get some good ones, all right? But that's not Spanish food. That's not, there's so much more to the cuisine.
Hey, I'm going to keep 100. Mexican food is nowhere near soul food like Puerto Rican and Simian and Cuban food is.
That's true.
If you want to compare it soul food to soul food.
Right. So that's where the similarities come in, right? So like Simeon, Ephraim food, Manasseh food, that's very similar to Levi food, Benji food, all right? You'll get that same type of flair and that type of stuff. Anyway, I say all this not to start a food war, all right? Because I could shut Judah down real quick like I did when we had our meeting at the house as to the cuisine, all right? It's that we live in this bubble, right? So America would have you believe that, yes, it's all Mexicans and nothing else out there. So we are going to read and have to give a little context because it's not just brothers and sisters that are believers. There's some that are newer in this truth. We have people who tune into the show or catch the show and get views on the show that are not even in the truth. And we need to give some context and backstory as to, especially when you deal with the places in the Caribbean that are less well known. And Dominican Republic is one of them, all right? Dominican Republic is one of them. And so we're going to live in context about where the Dominican Republic is, what it represents, so on and so forth, and talk about that as well. And along the same vein of what we've been going on since we started watching Harvest of Empire, and we're going to go back to that documentary today, we have a ton of information, all right? So, you know, this is talk radio, so you're going to get a ton of information on America's time in the Dominican Republic, all right? So, you know, today's topic is called the Banana Wars. We're going to continue to show the American imperialism, what their interests were at that time, and how their interests have changed a little bit, but it's still governed by that Monroe Doctrine, right? We posted that up on this show. I don't want to do another, I mean, even though it's really good, I'm sure maybe somewhere down the line in the future we'll talk about the Monroe Doctrine again. But if you don't know what it is, look it up. We did a class on it. Producer, if you can post a link again about it, because that really helps you understand why we've been spending these past couple months going over America's influence in Northern Kingdom countries. All right. So, one, it helps identify from a perspective of the curses that we are the children of the book. Right. We're not going by the way Lenny Kravitz looks. OK. That's right. And two, it helps even Northern Kingdom, who does not believe, some of them, that they're oppressed and all of that, realize that they can see themselves in the Bible as far as identified with the afflictions of our people. So all our afflictions are common. They've just manifested sometimes at different times and sometimes in slightly different ways. Like when we were watching a documentary about the Mexican Civil War, and Jesse Jackson said, while we were in the fields picking cotton, they were in there picking tomatoes and they were doing this. He said, while we were fighting, doing sit-ins and everything, they were doing them also. We just didn't know it until much later. Like, so basically he was saying in all things, our oppression is the same. All right. Our oppression is the same. So, we'll do a little housekeeping. Can you give them the call-in number and stuff, Cap? I wanna share these links.
Yeah, call-in number is 516 531-9797.
If we could get it up to work, right? Because as of now, it might not work. I think they're still trying to get it to block.
I'm trying to get it up now.
Okay, if we can get it to work, we're having a little technical difficulties with the platform that we use for that. Also, like, share, comment. Can't stress that enough. Subscribe. I haven't mentioned that in a while. We are trying to get 10,000 subscribers. We are almost there. Almost ain't good enough.
Right.
We're at 9,500 something.
9,500 something.
Yep. Right?
Yeah.
Last time I saw.
Yeah, 9,500 something. That's right.
So subscribe. Don't overlook that. Subscribe. Tell everybody when you share this to subscribe. That helps us also, right? So like, share, comment, and subscribe, please. Trying to get that 10K.
Booster Club. You can talk about that.
Oh yeah, the Booster Club.
I'm still switching.
Don't forget that the money from the Booster Club, that goes strictly and solely for us to travel around the world to spread the word, to spread the gospel. Very important. Okay, obviously we can't do it ourselves. We've gone over what community is, what community was in the Book of Acts. Okay, everybody came together. They sold not everything that they had. They sold what they could, and they gave it and brought it upon the feet of the disciples. All right, and then the disciples gave it out accordingly. Booster Club is the same thing. All right, you're donating, and it gets disseminated and used accordingly to where the Most High puts the spirit on the leaders for us to go out and teach the word, especially in this 11th hour. Okay, don't let this whole crap going on with the magic potion jab and all that stuff think that the word is stopping. The word is not stopping. All right, we're keeping it moving. All right, we're keeping it moving. So continue to send your donations to the Booster Club. Also got originalroyalty.com. All right, that also helps brothers and sisters out. It also helps to spread this truth as well. So don't forget to go on there, and a lot of things to like on there. Make your purchases. That's all going to a good cause. Let's see what else. I think that's it, right?
Yeah, I think you ran the gamut.
That's right.
Do you have our Latino inventor up that I asked you for?
Yep, and also don't forget, like Cap brought out, we also have, this is the Power Hour Plus, because we go 2 hours or more sometimes, and then Saturdays is the hour show, and it's strictly an hour because we have a 12 o'clock class by Bishop Kanai, so we don't step on that, obviously. So don't forget to join us there, subscribe, like. That's on Facebook only.
Yeah, so that's what I was going to say. So, yeah, don't just subscribe. We want 10,000 subscribers, obviously, on the IUSA Phoenix YouTube page. But subscribe to the Facebook, the Power Hour page, all right? The Power Hour page. That's at, what is it, at the Lost 144K. You'll see it right there on the screen. It's along the lower third. All right, make sure that you're subscribing to that as well. All right, that definitely helps out. Even though I think Facebook's probably gonna be one of the first ones to cut us.
Oh, I already see it right now, man. I already see it. Also, when we do share shows from the Power Hour, share them also, to your friends. That's another outlet. It's not just YouTube. Use the videos that are on Facebook also. I'm sure a lot of y'all have a lot of friends that may not be repented. You never know, man. It may be something in those shows that makes them, start the process of repenting. So share that.
What did
as well.
Jose Hernandez invent? We did the windmills. I remember that. That can translate. Oh, okay. We can read that one. All right, hold on. We'll read that one in a second. Hey, at King Couture, the Booster Club is through PayPal, right? Or you can, like, if you have a card, you can do that. If you're trying to mail checks for donations, you can just mail it to the address on the website. All right, it's a P.O. box on IsraelUnite.org, and you just make it out to Israel United in Christ, and you can take checks that way. But the Booster Club's something different. The funds get purposed for, like Captain Apartment was saying, travel. Also, anything related to international stuff. So, like, if they need help with, like, a radio show, a television thing, or whatever it is, we try to use those funds from that Booster Club to help the international ministry. So
yeah, and don't send cash, Brother King Couture. I mean, it's not a way to go.
Yeah, that's why. Yeah, that's why. So I said, make sure make sure it's made out to Israel United in Christ. But if you're doing IUIC, that fundraising at IsraelUnite.org, that goes straight to the Booster Club. All right, that goes straight. to
Plus, you could keep that as a proof for you for your taxes. You know what I mean? You're donating to a church and stuff.
Go to originalroyalty.com if you have questions about garments and merchandise. All right, we have a customer service team. They'll take care of you there. All right, you can deal with it there. There's a number. Right. You can call them, you can text them, you can email them. All right, we have contact center. And just be patient. We're not Amazon. They're not there 24/7 to answer your stuff. All right.
Right. We don't have an assembly line.
I know the poor sister, when she first got the phone for OR, she forgot to turn it off. Y'all was calling like at 2-3 in the morning out here.
Yeah, I know.
Customer service stuff. All right, just be patient. Just be patient. All right, a lot of this stuff is staffed minimally to make sure that we can get things done for you. Right?
Hey, just real quick, thank all the supporters. If you're a first timer, all right, welcome. All right, continue. Thank you for your support. And our regulars, thank you, man. Always appreciate your support. We got Jabari Israel. All praises, brother. He's here consistently. Let's see, we got quite a few brothers and sisters.
King Couture.
King Couture is always on, right? I want to shout out to some sisters too. We have Sister Zafia. Sister T, she always
Sister
on
T,
there. It's the
yep.
House of Brother Colorado. Who I think I saw him on
I think Nashawn Judah.
Yeah, Nashawn Judah's another one. Yes.
He stay on there.
All of y'all. Luke Israel, I think they've been coming on a lot. Yeah, man. All praise. We really appreciate your support, sincerely, man. We really do, man. We couldn't have this success, without y'all. You know what I'm saying? Yep, Zafia. Yeah, there she go. She one of our faithful viewers.
Oh yeah, on all the stuff.
Yeah, she shares stuff, everything, man. So all praises. Thank you, sis.
All right, so we have Jose Hernandez Rebollar. And Jose Hernandez Rebollar invented the Issachar glove, a glove that can translate sign language into speech. Wow. According to the Smithsonian, it uses sensors attached to the glove and the arm. This prototype device can currently translate the alphabet and over 300 words in American Sign Language into both English and Spanish. Wow, that's heavy.
Yo, how you even think of
I don't know how the hell.
But I like it.
Programming, I guess, right? So like as you're doing the signing, it
yeah, but he had to sit there and be like,
right.
How can I, you know what I mean? Like just the whole thought process on that.
Right. Wow, look at that. All praise to the Most High. And that is this week's Latino inventor, Northern Kingdom inventor. All right. So I'm going to start with, can you pull up, I don't have the links up, because like.
Oh, you know what? He brought up a good point. Remember the movie Congo?
Right. Hey,
Brother,
maybe that's where he got.
Brother Couture, man.
Yeah.
That's true. Yeah, all praises.
B Butter. If you're talking about OR in the chat, the only way to reach them is through the contact on the website. Not Facebook, not Instagram, nothing else. You can only reach them through the customer service methods that I mentioned. So that's the phone number or the email for original royalty. And like I said, be patient. It's not like we have an army of people manning that stuff. It's a handful of brothers and sisters that make that thing move. All right. So yeah, Congo.
I meant you guys.
Oh, as far as the chat, yeah, you could put the question here in the chat. However, let's make sure that we're keeping it on topic. We don't want to detract from the topic of the show, which is the Banana Wars, Dominican Republic, and American Imperialism. But if your question can be answered, we'll refer you to a video or something like that. There's plenty of teachings out there that can answer that sort of stuff.
We have producers. We have the team that's monitors.
Right. So yeah. So he's showing different examples of the gloves up there, the talking gloves and things like that. Yeah, that's right. I remember that movie Congo, right?
Yeah.
The gorilla would do it, and Amy.
Yeah. Gorilla in the Mist.
Right.
Hey, she finally died, man. That Edomite from Gorilla in the Mist.
The real life one.
Yeah.
Because you say that, and I was thinking Sigourney Weaver.
Oh,
because wasn't she the actress in that?
She was.
Right.
Amy, yeah.
Right.
Talk about but Gorilla in the Mist.
Gorillas in the
Mist. The real one.
The real one. The actual one that's based on. All right, let's pull up the Dominican Republic wiki. All right. The one that says just Dominican Republic. Yes. So like I said, some of you might know, some of you might not know, but that's okay. That's part of the purpose of the show. So we're going to read just the intro page of wiki about the Dominican Republic. República Dominicana. I know. I told my wife today, who's from the tribe of Simeon, I said, hey, we're talking about DR today. You might want to get up in there, all right? Oh, I see B Butter's question. You know what? Isn't Captain Abiel dealing with that as far as translators? Producer, if you can answer his question, he says he's if there's any study material provided.
Yes,
right.
Yeah, we are looking for that now.
Yeah.
Actually.
So the producer will try to answer you. Look up try to find it. You know, they were announcing it like every Sabbath, producers. So whatever the contact email is for that, they'd be better able to answer that question. But we appreciate it. We appreciate you trying to put your brick in. All right. So the Dominican Republic, República Dominicana. Or if you're Dominican, you just call it Santo Domingo. Even though Santo Domingo is just a city in the República Dominicana.
Yeah, but everybody refers to it like that.
Right. So, the Dominican Republic is a country located on the island of Hispaniola, right? Because it's not all DR. Haiti's on the other side of that border. And what Christopher Columbus called it when he first came was Hispaniola, because he was basically naming it after Spain, right? Hispaniola, or the Spanish island, yeah, you could do that pop-up, is an island in the Caribbean that is part of the Greater Antilles. Hispaniola is the most populous island in the West Indies and the region's second largest in the area after the island of Cuba. So Cuba's the largest, Hispaniola is the second largest, right? But a lot of times, because Simeon got a lot of hate for Levi, right? Well, let me correct that. Not Simeon. Dominicans got a lot of hate for Haitians, all right? So a lot of times they don't even think about the Haitian side of the island. But we're going to show you the genesis of that hate. If it's not tonight, this definitely going to be a two-parter, all right, at minimum. And then sometimes Cuba wound up being more because I kept researching it every week. So I find out more and more information as we went through it. But we'll see how much this is, all right? It occupies the eastern 5/8 of the island, which it shares with Haiti, making Hispaniola one of only 2 Caribbean islands, along with St. Martin, that is shared by 2 sovereign states. The Dominican Republic is the second largest nation in the Antilles by area after Cuba. That's what we just read on the other little pop-up, right? And it gives its square mileage and size. So Dominican Republic, as of 2020, has approximately 10.8 million people, and hence why they call it Santo Domingo more than anything is that roughly a third, 30 some odd percent live in Santo Domingo. That's the capital city, that's the metropolitan area. And of course, the official language of the country is Spanish. The native Taino people, yes, Taino is not exclusive just to Puerto Ricans, all right? Taino, or before they were named Taino, right? Captain Parham brings that out often, that Taino means, what does it mean?
Buena gente.
Yeah, buena gente. That's what they were saying to the conquistadors when Columbus landed, so he thought he was saying that's what they were. Historically, if you want to research that, you must look up the Arawaks, all right? In that region, you had the Arawak Indians and the Carib Indians, all right? Or the Arawak people and the Carib people, all right? The Carib people is what you know as the tribe of Benjamin, all right? Later on, by extension, Levi. And then all the so-called Spanish-speaking ones, all right, they typically descend from the Arawaks, all right, which we know really is going into the tribes of Israel, all right? So the native Taino people had inhabited Hispaniola before the arrival of the Europeans. Notice that's a key point, right? It always gets me when they say before the arrival, because they say that they discovered this place. How could you discover a place that was inhabited, right, prior to that? And we know historically via the scriptures why it was inhabited. So let's get that in 2nd Ezra, all right, 13.
And then the other thing, right, the $1 million question probably a lot of you had, I know I had, how did we get there, period, even before the truth?
Right.
Like, because you don't really hear too much about that in history class.
Right.
You know, you always hear about the Eastern Hemisphere. Right? How did they get there?
Mm-hmm.
All life did start on the Eastern Hemisphere. That is true, but how did they get to this part of it?
Exactly. And you know what? I often got to remind myself that we need to remember that we're not always preaching to the choir. So we got to bring these basic scriptures out. Sometimes I'll be like, damn, you know, some of these scriptures, I feel like they come out a bunch. But there's a reason for that, and they need to come out that way, right? If you think about it, when you're at camp, it's pretty much the same topics you're going over week after week, right?
Matthew 19.
Yeah. You can't go deep in. You go into identity, right? You go into Matthew 19, right? That's another one. You go into John 3:16, things like that. You go into Revelation 1 with the image of Christ. So it's important, right? It's important that we go ahead and continue to edify that stuff, because these are the key scriptures that will help identify who the people of the book are today.
Right, because the first step to repentance is bethink yourself.
Right.
If you don't know your history, if you don't know, what's my favorite thing? If you don't know where you came from, you won't know where you're going.
Right.
And that's going to lead you right into the truth.
Right. Now, I didn't screen all this stuff the links that I put. I kind of browsed through them. Sometimes I'm hit with information new, right? One thing that I just noticed with the anthem is Quisqueyanos Valientes. Prior to Columbus coming here and naming that island Hispaniola, it was called Quisqueya. And I don't know. I can't put a number on it percentage-wise, but Cap, you can validate this. How many times will we be in New York talking to someone that's Simeon, and they didn't know that the island was called Quisqueya prior to that? They think Santo Domingo, Dominican Republic. Maybe they know Hispaniola. Very few know Quisqueya.
The only ones that knew about Quisqueya was the nightclub in Brooklyn. Quisqueya nightclub.
But I did not know that was the anthem. There's a song called Quisqueyanos Valientes.
And I don't know, but Quisqueya means tierra de oro. That's a Hebrew word.
Yes.
It means tierra. That's what the tribe of Simeon.
Yes, land of gold. Land
Yep.
of gold is what he's saying, right? So, Quisqueya means land of gold. All right. So let's read this. Second Ezra's 1340. We won't spend too much on this, but just remember, we just read that it says the Taino people had inhabited Hispaniola before the arrival of the Europeans. Right. It's often overlooked when you read about Columbus, Ponce de Leon, Amerigo Vespucci, all right, Hernan Cortez, and all these people that came over here, all the slave masters of the Northern Kingdom came over here. And it's often overlooked the aspect of it being occupied prior to them getting here. And our history typically starts with their arrival. Right. There's not much prior to that, seemingly so, right? Part of that's by design. You can't think that we had this large civilization. You're looking at the map up on the screen, right? Look at the globe up on the screen with the blow up, right? And look at those land masses. Right? The blow up is showing you Dominican Republic and then Haiti. But look at the continents of North and what's known as North, South America, the Caribbean. You got Central America there. And you're going to tell me that they didn't have records and documents of their civilizations prior to the arrival of the conquistadors? It doesn't make sense. And then that leads you to then say, well, what happened to it, right? And that's where the study of iconoclasm comes in. And you can see that this was a tactic of Esau and his descendants throughout history when they conquered a land because they had nothing, because their blessing was nothing but to take over and rule, like you read in Genesis, all right? What they did was they instituted this iconoclasm, which they had to erase the culture of those people there so that then they can write their narrative and take up the standard of those people, right? Just like the original Greeks, they were not white. What was in that land, those scattered lands were the lands of Japhet. And they took that over. And they took their identity. And they rewrote history that way. And history today, they call the Greeks. And you think Greeks. And you're thinking, what's that movie with Colin Farrell, Alexander, right? Mm-hmm. You're thinking those people, right? They identified as Greeks, but they were not the original Greeks, all right? So same type of thing going on here, which is why it's important that we bring this perspective out biblically, because through iconoclasm, the records of our ancient civilizations have been long destroyed. You were going to say something?
Yeah, no, whoever's in charge is going to write history to benefit them.
That's why it's called his story.
Yeah.
Right? His story. Whoever wins, that's the one who writes it, right? Mm-hmm. So, and we know that when you read First Maccabees, how they sought to put their images in the book of the law. Let's read that real quick before we read this.
Because this proves it right here, what we talk. Why did they have to go that far? But understand, it wasn't just any of the other ruling nations that they did that with, right? Because we know about the Persians, but the only thing, according to Psalms 83, the hidden ones, none of the other empires were hidden.
Yep.
We know about them. They're in the Bible. They're in our history books. The only one history that's hidden and it was stolen from us was our true history. Yep. We're the only ones, blacks, Hispanics, Native Americans, that we think don't have any history.
Right. Our history is the Bible. Right. That's our history book, right? And we had other records as well, but they were destroyed in their crafty counsel, like Cap brought out in Psalms 83, in their attempt to keep us hidden, all right? And this is one of the examples that you read in the time of the Greeks and the Maccabees that the soldier's about to bring out that lets you know that was a practice of theirs. Go ahead, read it.
This is the book of First Maccabees, chapter 3 and verse 48. And laid open the book of the law.
So they laid open the Bible, meaning once upon a time, our scrolls, our Bibles, our records had images, all right? Because you have dummies that say we should not have images based on the commandments. And what they don't realize is when that's a new one. When they don't realize that they push that sort of doctrine, what that does is that's really the doctrine. That's a Willie Lynch doctrine. Because if we don't have those images, if we don't have those, how come it's okay for them to have images then? How come it's okay for Christianity and all this other stuff to have images? Right? Because what they're trying to do is feed you the identity they created for you, which is that so-called Negro. And when I say Negro, that means the Hispanic as well, all right? That so-called Negro, that so-called Hispanic. That's the identity that they created for us and they want us to identify with, and not our true history as Israelites. So one of the first documented in the Bible of iconoclasm, you'll read here in Maccabees. And it says they laid open the book of the law where we had our images, right? Go ahead.
Wherein the heathen has sought to paint the likeness of their images.
Because of their crafty counsel, they sought to paint the likeness of their images. Wouldn't it be odd if we didn't have images and all of a sudden images were painted in our records? So they took that concept and they said, look, we need to wipe their stuff out and put our stuff in. And they applied that same thing on a large scale when the beast that was wounded rose again in the time of the Renaissance. Because what is the Renaissance known for? All that art, all that Renaissance art, right? The Sistine Chapel, Michelangelo, Leonardo da Vinci, right? All these Edomite sculptors and artists, and all of their stuff is their images. So that thing was carried on to them. So you read that one verse with such few words is iconoclasm. And by extension of that iconoclasm, what you have today, right, because under that comes all the other crafty counsels and devices that they put in forth, is this confusion of who we are.
And here's the other thing, right? So how come people of dark skin are isolated just to Africa? As big as the Eastern Hemisphere is, we didn't travel anywhere else.
Right.
You only see we didn't think about that. It's little things like that make you go home. I mean, just not too long ago, I was like, wait a minute, everything is just people of dark skin are isolated just to Africa.
Mm-hmm.
But what about they even hide the fact that Moab, the Chinese, were dark skinned originally.
Yep.
And that some of them you can still find them.
Yep. Yeah. You'll see pictures like that and stuff. Yep.
Crazy.
Absolutely.
Crazy.
Absolutely.
They get darker in the Philippines too.
Yeah.
Yep.
Same thing everywhere. Well, that's who we were until Esau came into the picture.
Right. Okay. Let's read this. Second Ezra 13. Yep.
Book of Second Ezra, chapter 13 and verse 40. Those are the 10 tribes which were carried away prisoners out of their own land.
Right. So if you read from chapter 13 from verse 1, there's a vision, right, from 1 to 24, right? And then from 25 on down through the rest of the chapter, the vision is explained. So there's a vision that Ezra received, right? So he's explaining the part where he saw this great mixed multitude, all right? And he says, those are the 10 tribes which were carried away prisoners out of where?
Out of their own land in the time of Hosea the king, whom Salmaneser, the king of Assyria, led away captive.
Right, so he's naming different eras here of captivities, explaining how we had this cycle of being carried away. It's very easy to understand how it was hard to maintain our identity when you were constantly shifted. Our diaspora started under the Assyrians, all right? Because remember, we were in Egypt. We were named a people prior to that. We were in Egypt, right? And then we kind of lost our identity somewhat as far as our customs. But we knew that we were the Israelites because that's how they identified us to keep us in bondage. But we didn't have the laws. We didn't have our heritage. We didn't have our customs. Our whole journey out of Egypt into the promised land revolved around us taking back our identity, taking back our heritage, right? Keeping our customs. And then after we went through the time of the kings and we fell again, you had Babylon, you had Assyria, all right? And you had these multiple diasporas of us shifting around the world, all right? Or that side of the world, okay? And I'm going to make a distinction in a moment when we talk about coming over here, all right? As we read down a few verses. Go ahead, come on.
And he carried them over the waters, and so they came into another land.
Right, so he had carried us into Nineveh, all right? And what the Assyrians would do is they would replace their tactic for conquering was to pull the people of the land out of there and then replace them with their people. So they would pull those people in to condition them in Nineveh, all right? And then they would replace, so like he's talking about Samaria here, they went and they put their people in Samaria for a time, all right? Go ahead.
But they took this counsel among themselves, that they would leave the multitude of the heathen and go forth into a further country, where never mankind dwelt.
So you have to examine this. They said, we want to go someplace where we are going to be away from the heathen. Heathen means the other nations.
That's right.
Says we want to go away from where the other nations are. And they said, we're going to go to a further country where never mankind dwelt. Until recently, one of the things we would kind of glaze over with this was the mindset for them to even say that. Right. That means there had to be an awareness in their minds. There had to be some knowledge that there was a place in the earth where these heathen were not. They knew this. Remember, we were talking about records up until this point. And recently, Deacon Aitan's been bringing it out. We brought it out, I think, last year on some of the shows, that during the time of David and Solomon and the navies that we had, we did exploration, which means we knew about this blow up that we showed on the screen of what's called the Western Hemisphere. And there was knowledge of this amongst our elders, that there was a place that we could be free of these heathen. It wasn't like they just mysteriously thought of this. All right. So there's historical accounts that infer that we knew this. All right.
Scripture says that. It says he made the world for our sake.
Right. Right.
The world.
He made the world for our sake. Exactly. So as they sat here and they made this decision, it said they took a counsel, meaning that these were people with knowledge and understanding. And that means some of them were saying, well, let's go back to the temple. We're commanded to build, right? Because some of our brethren are going back to the temple. No, why don't we just go try to settle in this city? Maybe these heathen won't be so bad. Let's go here. And then some were like, well, what about Arsareth, which we're going to read? Yeah, I can imagine how that went, too. They're probably sitting there, because you see it dramatized on TV. They're having these councils. Well, what about Arsareth? Arsareth? Are you insane? How are we going to go to Arsareth? Well, the king's giving us liberty. He's going to provide us boats and things like that. Nobody knows how to get there. The records show that this is the... You know, like, you have to visualize this stuff. Mm-hmm. We read this in one verse, and there's a lot going on there, right? So you have to visualize this stuff. So it says, we're going to go where never mankind dwelt. Come on.
Verse 42, that they might there keep their statues, which they never kept in their own land.
They said it's going to be a clean slate. We can go there and not have the influence of these heathen, not realizing the wickedness within ourselves, the rebellious nature within ourselves.
Wicked amongst them, right?
What's that saying? The road to hell is paved with good intentions, right? Yes, because, they went the hell off when they came over here.
And remember, it didn't happen right away. Let's understand. We came here 539, 538 BC approximately.
Uh-huh.
So it took a lot of years because, when did the Most High jack them up? 1492.
Yeah, that was when the ultimate,
the Most High had enough already. He was like, all right, that's it.
Yep.
So now Deuteronomy 28 has to be fulfilled, and a nation from afar with a fierce countenance has to come and now destroy you.
Right. Yeah, those prophecies got to be fulfilled.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Go ahead, read on.
Verse 43, and they entered into Euphrates by the narrow passages of the river.
Come on.
For the Most High then showed signs for them, and held still the flood till they were passed over.
Right, so they entered into Euphrates. The flood is talking about the ocean. They entered into the ocean to get to where they were going to go. And it says, and the Most High held it still. Right, because the ocean is turbulent. There's stories of sailors and the sea. There's so many. We talk about hurricanes and tropical depressions and what do they call them? Typhoons and things like that. Those things form over the ocean all the time. All right. There's certain ones that make landfall, but there's a ton of that out there. They're saying the Most High, because remember, he controls all the spirits that control those elements. It says he made that calm. That means, can you imagine? That must be like eerie. That means he made all creation at peace for them to pass through.
Hey, he said his voice, the scripture says his voice makes rain and thunder.
Yep.
I think that's in Proverbs.
That means he held all that back for them.
Yeah, he didn't speak.
Yep. He made, you know what that means too, right? With moving with that many people, because that was like what you talk about as a caravan. It was almost like a navy that went over there, right?
That's exactly how it had to be.
It had to be It had to be hundreds of ships,
hundreds,
right? That went over, that came over, right? That means he made it okay for the fish for them to catch as they were on there, like all these blessings that they got to get there, right? Again, this is just like context that you have to really meditate on.
Dude, he said he held us floods still.
But that means it was like a pool of water. It was like water in your sink.
All it was, man.
So that they could glide across that. Because you be, and, hey, I know some of the captains been on some of them fishing boats. We got footage of them not keeping their innards in as they went on that stuff, right? Bruh. So they kept that thing calm for them as they went through. So he held still the flood. Come on.
Verse 45, for through that country there was a great way to go.
Meaning to get there, it was a long time. This is why he had to hold still the flood until they were passed over. Come on.
Namely, of a year and a half.
It says, namely, it's approximately a journey of a year and a half. Come on.
In the same region is called Arsareth.
And the name that it was known as, right? Now, we know that the Apocrypha is written in Greek, all right, was Arsareth. And Arsareth was identified by the conquistadors, all right, as the land where the 10, what they were known as the 10 lost tribes. We know in these last days they're found, where the 10 lost tribes, okay, went to. It was a place where never mankind dwelt. So the fact that they even had a name for this place, that really in the history books, you can't really find much about Arsareth. The little that we have been able to find always jives with the narrative of the scriptures. And you can't really find it. They'll tell you it's a fairy tale, made up land. No, it was something that was discovered during the rule of King Solomon. All right. And this is what it was named. OK, and they had retained this, the elders in that council. OK,
that's right.
Go ahead.
Verse 46. Then dwelt they there until the latter time.
Right, because some people will then say, well, they migrated there, but they're not there now. They were killed off. No, it says they dwelt there until the latter time. Remember, this is the explanation of a future vision. All right? He's giving him the history and the future. When he saw this, when you read this, you have to read the whole chapter. All right? He's telling them how they got there to explain that vision. Go ahead, come on.
And now, when they shall begin to come.
Meaning what? Now, when they shall bethink themselves and begin to return. There's that other scripture that talks about Ephraim will roar like a lion from the west, right? Letting you know that it's talking about they will begin to come. It says they will be there. They will dwell there until the latter times. And now, when they shall begin to come. Come on.
Verse 47. The highest shall stay the springs of the stream again, that they may go through. Therefore sawest thou the multitude with peace.
Now, here he's getting figurative. He's not saying that they would travel in the ocean to come back. And when he says he would stay still, the stream is that the flood, right? Meaning the flood of the mouth of the dragon would be able to be held back by the power of these scriptures for us to be able to repent, to bethink ourselves and come again. All right. So that's going back to, you were going to bring something out, Cap?
Yeah, if you don't mind.
Go ahead, bring it up.
Give me Jeremiah 31, 35, 36. I'm going to read to 37 because you brought out something, right? We have new viewers. Mm-hmm. And they may also have come from the thought process that we were destroyed. We came here and we were destroyed and taken away. All right, well, let's see what the Most High said about that. Go ahead.
This is the book of Jeremiah, chapter 31 and verse 35.
And I brought this up before, but we got new people here. So go ahead.
Thus saith the Lord, which giveth the sun for a light by day, and the ordinance of the moon and of the stars for a light by night, which divideth the sea when the waves thereof roar. The Lord of hosts is his name.
So in the first verse, right off the bat, the Most High controls everything. And everything that was mentioned here and everything on the earth has ordinances, has laws. They know what they need to do because the Most High controls. They have a spirit. So they know how far they can do certain things and what everybody knows their place. They know they stay in their lane. You never see the moon going ahead and try to take over the sun. The moon trying to say, "Oh, well, I'm gonna come out in the daytime."
Right.
Moon never say that.
It's a divine order.
It's a divine order. The moon knows it comes out at night. Right? Go ahead.
If those
ordinances, the ocean knows not to cover the whole land. It stops at a certain point, even at high tide. Right? Go ahead.
If those ordinances depart from before me, saith the Lord, then the seed of Israel also shall cease from being a nation before me forever.
Are all those ordinances still here?
Yes, sir.
So the cap brought out. All right. That doctrine that we were destroyed, it gets destroyed just by this verse alone.
That's right.
Okay. So you might be saying that's the Old Testament. Real quick, Cat, give me Romans 11. All right. And 1. Real quick. All right. Because somebody say, oh, but that was the Old Testament. I like to go old and new because it smacks up the people that don't believe the old.
That's biblical. Precept upon
Has
precept.
to.
Here
It
a
has
little,
to.
there a little. Here
It
a
has
little in
to.
the old, here a little in the
Right.
new.
And it's proof that the New Testament, Christ and Paul were referring back to what? The Old Testament, because the New Testament wasn't written, like I've often said, approximately 70 years after Christ died. All right, go ahead.
This is the book of Romans, chapter 11 and verse 1. I say then, have God cast away his people?
Have God cast away his people? Were the people destroyed after they came over here, according to 2 Ezra 13?
God forbid.
God forbid. Go ahead.
For I also am an Israelite of the seed of Abraham, of the tribe of Benjamin.
Wait a minute. Benjamin's over here in Jamaica, right?
That's right.
So that proves right there also that they were never destroyed. All right, very simple.
All right, all praises to the Most High. All praises to the Most High. So we brought that out because now we're going to read this again when we read about the Dominican Republic, right? And it says, the native Taino people had inhabited, now we know how they inhabited, how they got there, Hispaniola before the arrival of the Europeans. They didn't discover a damn thing. Dividing it into 5 chiefdoms. They had constructed an advanced farming. And when it says they divided into 5 chiefdoms, it goes a lot further than that. It's talking about just the Caribbean here. They parted the land, all right, based on their tribes. This is how you know when we give the tribal breakdown now. I think we also did another episode where we showed how it wasn't the old breakdown that you have in what's known as the Middle East today, because of the way geographically it was positioned. It's talking about here. So it says the Tainos also, and where they began, they constructed an advanced farming and hunting society and were in the process of becoming an organized civilization. Going into what? What they said, let's go somewhere where we can keep our laws, statutes, and commandments unfettered, right? That's because that's what organizes us, brothers and sisters. It starts with those commandments. That's the foundation. In a lot of my classes, I'll talk about how the Bible, the best equivalent that I could say for it when we're in rulership, that's going to be the constitution of the earth. That's going to be the ruling document of the whole entire earth. And the universe, too. And the universe.
Shameless plug, shameless plug.
Yes. The Tainos also inhabited Cuba, Jamaica, right? So, hey, some Benji might be Ephraim.
Yeah.
Some Ephraim might be Benji, all right? Puerto Rico and the Bahamas. The Genoese mariner, Christopher Columbus, because he was Italian, and the Italians laughed him to scorn, which was just another set of Edomites. That's a faction of Edomites. So he went to the other Edomites in Spain, Queen Isabella and them, right? Explored and claimed the island for Castile, Spain. That's where you get, they call it Castellano Spanish. That's the proper Spanish. That is the, if you speak Castellano, that's, because there's different dialects in Spanish, right? Every Northern Kingdom tribe speaks a different dialect of Spanish. Right?
That thing's terrible. They say cinco for cinco.
Well, and I'm going to tell you
Let's speak
something.
with a TH.
And maybe because it's not my first language. No, not even. When you look at syntax and everything else, Spanish is a very complicated language.
Just the punctuations and everything.
Well,
alone,
they're just the multiple words, right? Because like there's words in one dialect that another Northern Kingdom tribe doesn't use that word.
I think that was by design, though.
Right.
I think that was part of the whole crafty council.
And then all the rules you got to remember.
Yeah,
it's like
yeah,
math.
Yeah.
Right? Only if this, and this. English is jacked up, too. Don't get me wrong. English is real. Like, the way we spell stuff and everything is real jacked up.
Words mean the same,
no.
spelled the same, but mean something different.
And there's like 15 synonyms to say the same thing, right? So it's a little streamed down.
Right, you got consonants, vowels, all that crazy.
So anyway, but then Castellano Spanish, that's the one.
Castellano.
Landing there on his first voyage in 1492. The colony of Santo Domingo, right, because Santo Domingo was a colony, all right, that he named it. The colony of Santo Domingo became the site of the first permanent European settlement in the Americas and the first seat of Spanish colonial rule in what they called the New World, right? See, which goes to show you their pomp, right? There's people here, but it's new, right? What's old to you is new to the next person, I guess, right? The Tainos nearly disappeared because they were so vicious. I mean, we've gone over that on the show. Cap's done episodes of that with Bartolome de las Casas. Their cruelty, the Most High is going to remember their cruelty, all right? The Tainos nearly disappeared. Nearly. But they're not done away with. above all from European infectious diseases. And they like to say that, and they did bring nasty vectors harboring all types of disease to us.
The hell is this?
This is true, but that's their way to try to soften the actual murderous Holocaust level rampage that they did to our people. They love to blame it on the disease and not on the hundreds of years that they had to murder, rape, rob, steal, torture.
You know why they blame it on disease, Cap? Because that's a nice way of saying biological warfare.
Yeah, but they won't even say it from a warfare perspective. It's you know what it does? It allows them to accept some measure of culpability, but it was an accident. We didn't mean to kill you with our germs.
With our nasty asses that didn't bathe. That's why we
you
brought
just
germs.
weren't immune to it. You just weren't immune to it. Other causes were abuse, suicide. Why? But suicide because if not, you were going to be freaking abused. See how they give you stuff with no context? The breakup of family, which caused suicide. Starvation, which caused suicide. The encomienda system, which we covered at length on this show. All right? Which resembled a feudal system in medieval Europe. War with the Spaniards. Changes in lifestyle. And mixing with other peoples. Mixing with other peoples. They'll even tell you that they know. You got our dumb people who say that we're done away with. They'll let you know that, no, they're still here. What they're telling you right here is that the original people that were here were not done away with. There was a large number done on them, right? It says they nearly disappeared, but they did not. They nearly disappeared, but they did not because of all these predicaments, which are in the curses. Everything that they said right there, you can read in Deuteronomy, the 28th chapter. Everything. Laws passed for the Indians' protection, beginning with the laws of Burgos, were never truly enforced. Hey, kind of sounds like nowadays when they pass a law supposedly to help our people out, but nothing truly changes. In 1697, Spain recognized French dominion over the western third of the island, which became the independent state of Haiti in 1804. Hence why our Levi brothers and sisters speak their Creole, which is the dialect based off of French. All right. After more than 300 years of Spanish rule, 300 years. 300 years. So I got to be careful how I say this, because with the anti-Semitism rhetoric that they put out, saying that any little thing that speaks against the narrative that they've accepted as documented history, we got to be careful how we mention things. There's assertions out there, I'll put it like that, that in the time that Hitler was in, how long was Hitler in rule? Less than 10 years, right?
I don't think it was more than 10.
Less than 10 years. That, he killed 6 million plus Jews, right? So there's people who say that's not possible, right?
Right.
I'm not gonna say anything because I know the rules, how sensitive they are on social media now. As far as that's not the road that I'm trying to go down. I'm using that example to tell you that the Spanish ruled 300 years, and if Hitler could kill 6 million so-called Jews in less than 10, then when you talk about half a billion, upwards of 750 million, 750 million, all right, of our people being decimated on this side of the world, that is surely possible in 300 years. That is surely possible in 300 years of oppression. And that was the Spanish rule. It's actually around 400 years when you count when the United States took over, as we went over after the Spanish-American War. So you add another 100 to it. So that same 400 years of oppression was there for us as well. The Dominican people declared independence in November 1821. The leader of the independence movement, Jose Núñez de Cáceres, intended the Dominican nation to unite with the country of Gran Colombia. But the newly independent Dominicans were forcefully annexed by Haiti in February 1822. And who was in charge of Haiti? The French, other Edomites. So when Spain, it created a vacuum when they left, all right? And the French said, okay, we're going to take over now. Independence came 22 years later in 1844 after victory in the Dominican War of Independence. Over the next 72 years, the Dominican Republic experienced mostly civil wars, financed with loans from European merchants, several failed invasions by its neighbor Haiti, and brief return to Spanish colonial status, but permanently ousting the Spanish during the Dominican War of Restoration of 1863 to 1865. During this period, 2 presidents were assassinated. I'm not going to say the names. Okay, so after this, we're going to watch the video after I read this intro port. This was just an intro into the Dominican Republic, because I can't make the assumption that all Israel really knows much about that, because the reality is most of our people's understanding is much like America's Mexicans. You think Spanish, you think Mexicans. You think Spanish food, you think tacos and refried beans, right? Which is delicious, by the way. All right.
Okay. Henry Louis Gates, he got a good series on this. It's called Black in Latin America. He go over a lot of that.
Yep. Henry Louis Gates, yeah, that brother, he be touching on some stuff, but sometimes
he tiptoes on
sometimes these brothers, these intelligent, because they are intelligent men, Henry Louis Gates, the likes of them, but their intelligence is also a bewitching, and it prevents them from seeing this true understanding. Because they have so much confidence in their books and in their libraries and things like that they can't see the spirituality of this. Nope. Nope. What are you doing? I need this up. Okay, the U.S. occupied the Dominican Republic. I bet y'all didn't know that. That went over everybody's head. The U.S. occupied, much like we read with Mexico, much like we read with Puerto Rico, much like we read with Cuba, right? Much like we read with other Central American countries. We did Guatemala, all right? The U.S. occupied the Dominican Republic between 1916 and 1924. And in this series, we're going to talk about that. I don't know if we'll get to it tonight. Due to threats of defaulting on foreign debts. So notice what they say here, and then we're going to see what the other narratives say. All right? So it says they were defaulting on foreign debts. This is the true reason why they did it. The other stuff is going to say they went into help and all this other stuff. All right? A subsequent calm and prosperous 6-year period under Horacio Vasquez followed. From 1930, the dictatorship of Rafael Leonidas Trujillo ruled until his assassination in 1961. So they had 30 years of a dictatorship and unrest. And with Trujillo, it falls on 2 sides. Some people were supporters of him because they saw some prosperity for a little while, and others will tell you that he was the monster that the U.S. made him. Because Trujillo, this is how it all ties back into the same topic that we were talking about, is a graduate from the School of the Americas. He is a graduate from the School of the Americas. And as we go through how his ascension into power, this dude went from an enlisted to a general in the Dominican Army in 9 years. In 9 years. Because of the United States influence. He was their guy. Much like we read how, was it Bautista was their guy in Cuba? I forgot who it was in Guatemala at this point. There's so many of these dictators that went through.
Pinochet. Nicaragua.
Oh, Pinochet. So it says, and then they arranged for him to be assassinated when he kind of got a big head and was out of control. So a civil war in 1965, the country's last, was ended by U.S. military occupation. The U.S. occupied the Dominican Republic twice. Now, I don't know how it's, I got to talk to, my wife was like, oh, you should have told me, I would have gave you some stuff. I said, well, we'll talk about it. I don't know how it's taught in Dominican history books. I imagine it's from a perspective of that the U.S. helped them. But it was an occupation. The history books say it was an occupation, which is that imperialism piece, right? And we talk about that American imperialism. So it says, so they occupied them again, and it was ended with U.S. military and was followed by the authoritarian rule of Joaquin how do you say it? Balaguer? Which one? Aguer. Highlight it. Balaguer.
Yeah, Balaguer.
Yep. Okay, you don't need to read about him now. Since 1978, the Dominican Republic has moved toward representative democracy and has been led by Leonel Fernandez for most of the time after 1996. Danilo Medina succeeded Fernandez in 2012, winning 51% of the electoral vote over his opponent, ex-president Hipólito Mejia. He was later succeeded by Luis Abinader in the 2020 presidential election. Here's some quick tips about DR. So I'm laying the foundation about DR and where they are today before we go into the history that got them there. The Dominican Republic has the largest economy, according to the U.S. the State Department and the World Bank, in the Caribbean and Central American region. It has the largest economy in the Caribbean and Central American region. Now, I'm not saying the Dominican Republic is as impoverished as some of the other countries that I've seen, but for them to have the largest economy, you'd think they'd be a lot more developed than they are. And the reason I'm saying that is not to knock our Simeon brothers and sisters, but to show you the long-lasting effects of American imperialism in the Dominican Republic, which is shown today. And it's the 7th largest economy in Latin America. That means they're up there with the big boys. They're in the top 10 in all the Latin American countries. Over the last 25 years, the Dominican Republic has had the fastest growing economy in the Western Hemisphere. That means even faster than the United States, with an average real GDP growth rate of 5.3% between 1992 and 2018. GDP growth in 2014, that's gross domestic product, in 2015 reached 7.3 and 7%, respectively, the highest in the Western Hemisphere. In the first half of 2016, the Dominican economy grew 7.4%, continuing its trend of rapid economic growth. Recent growth has been driven by construction, manufacturing, tourism, and mining. The country is the site of the second largest gold mine in the world. What does Quisqueya mean? Land of gold. The second largest gold mine in the world, the Pueblo Viejo mine, is in the Dominican Republic. But yet, their thing, even though the economy is growing, it doesn't really seem that way for the people there. I'm not saying they're super impoverished, but it doesn't fully represent that. Private consumption has been strong as a result of low inflation, under 1% on average in 2015, job creation, and a high level of remittances. The Dominican Republic is the most visited destination in the Caribbean. The year-round golf courses are major attractions. What they don't tell you is the hua houses are a major attraction for a lot of people that go there, too. You got some lewd. Man, I used to work with the brokers. Edomite brokers, and they were always going to DR to go over there and deal with that stuff. They have like whole tourism
cops
based
too?
around that. Yeah, he said the cops too.
Captain Apartment, you brought out a video not too long ago in your Savage radio show concerning this about the sisters that they rather prostitute than.
Oh, that was in Cuba. You talk about the one sister that was talking?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was in Cuba. She was talking about that's how they did in Cuba. Yeah. That's all happens over there too.
Right. A geographically diverse nation, the Dominican Republic is home to both the Caribbean's tallest mountain peak, Pico Duarte, and the Caribbean's largest lake and lowest point, Lake Enriquillo. The island has an average temperature of 78.8 and graded climate. I don't need to know about that. The country is also the site of the first cathedral, castle, monastery, and fortress built in the Americas, because that's what came with the Spaniards. So they built their first cathedral, castle, monastery, and fortress. They also have a morro. We talk about that in Puerto Rico, El Morro. There's one over there in DR. There's one in Cuba as well. Located in Santo Domingo's Colonial Zone, a World Heritage Site. Baseball is the de facto national sport. All right. So, enough with the reading for now. Let's jump into the Harvest of Empire documentary. We've given you some context to DR. We've reviewed how our people got there. Not just there, but to this side of the world. I found it necessary to spend some time giving some background on Dominican Republic because I think it's only known vaguely to a lot of Israel and a lot of people in America in that regard, and probably even the world, I would say. It's not thought of as a significant place, but it most certainly is for our people. All right? Go ahead. No sound. Still no sound.
In the Western Hemisphere.
You gotta rewind. Nah, you gotta rewind.
I'm here.
You can go a little further back so that we can key in clear on it.
American nations cannot, must not, and will not permit the establishment of another communist government in the Western Hemisphere.
Stop. So that's always their thing. Remember how we kind of closed out, I think, the show before last on Cuba, and I made the assertion that Fidel Castro was not a communist at all, but rather he wanted to be part of the Comecon because he knew that the United States would block him off with sanctions and stuff, and it would affect his country and his people. We even showed how, because of that establishment and that relationship, they were able to thrive until the Soviet Union collapsed. If the Soviet Union was alive and well today, Cuba would still be thriving, right? They would have never went through this downturn that they went through because they were at least able to get oil and other things and stuff like that through there. So this goes back to that Monroe Doctrine, and they go on this thing where, well, we can't let communism thrive. We can't let... I mean, first of all, who the hell are you to talk about... And this, I mean, there's so many links that I have. I can't even remember where it is. There's one that talks about the hypocrisy, how they say, like, it's not about them going in and making people choose how to govern their country. Like, there's an alliance that they made, and the alliance basically says that they'll respect that, but the U.S. has never respected it. So,
hey, and they always have a different narrative, right? Because they say Iran's not communist, right? But what's their narrative with that? Oh, well, they're terrorists.
Right, they harbor terrorists.
Right. They harbor terrorists. All right, it's always something to pull on the heartstrings of people. That's that smooth and butter thing, man.
Yeah, it's very smoother than butter. Go ahead. Damn, we lost
another communist government in the Western Hemisphere.
That's Johnson, right?
Yep, it's a BJ.
I'm here because the United States invaded my country in 1965. An illegal invasion, completely trumped up excuse to invade the Dominican Republic and crush our democratic hopes.
Stop. So you can pause right there before he talks. So this is their MO. This was their excuse to go into... What was their excuse to go into Iraq? Weapons of mass destruction. What was their excuse to go into Vietnam? Oh, we got to deal with the communist regime. What was the excuse to go into Afghanistan? And this is where I want to... later, I may pull it up where you'll see that their involvement in Afghanistan goes back to 1979.
Right.
Where Papa Bush, as the director of the CIA, armed and trained many of those, I mean, I'm sure a lot of those Taliban guys are old, but what eventually became the Taliban were armed and trained by the United States because supposedly they need to go in there to prevent Russia from obtaining
exactly
another communist country. That plays out in the movie Charlie Wilson's War.
Charlie Wilson's War. Hey, you notice they always use the heartstrings of the people are suffering. Ain't nobody suffering over there, man.
Yeah, that's what
Ain't nobody was ever suffering anywhere. That's the same narrative that they're trying to pull in Cuba. It's the same thing. It's always the people are suffering. There's dictators over there. The regime doesn't let them do this. And under the guise of democracy, when we come in, that's all going to change. It doesn't. Look at us now in America. They're forcing us to do things that we shouldn't have to do.
Right.
Right.
And who's communist now? Who's communist now, Cap?
You know,
with everything we're going through right now, and that's coming down the pipe. It's a lie, man. They're freaking liars.
Communism is such a fabrication. Now you see it for what it is. It's a farce. This whole fear of communism, it doesn't fly anymore because the Cold War is over. Okay, what were you gonna say?
No, I was gonna say that's why the scriptures say that neither keepeth at home. It talks about this man. He's always in somebody else's country worrying about what they're doing.
He can't stay home.
Hey, and you know, like you said, it doesn't work. Let me get Micah 2:10. What comes with this, all right, is what comes with their policing, with their democracy. The leadership's even been going over that over the past year. Deacon Athan's been touching on that stuff. It's pollution. This is why these nations fight against it. They know it's polluted. They've seen what it does. This is why Cuba has held out in the face of all of this for years, for decades, because they know that when you let that monster in, it's tainted. Might you get some benefit? Might you get a seat at the table on the world stage? Yeah, sure. But what's the cost? What do you sacrifice for allowing that stuff to come in? And the funny thing is, without those sanctions and stuff, many of these countries would thrive and prosper if it was truly this free world trade type of thing that was going on. But it's not. There is a cost with it. It is a literal selling your soul to the devil to allow the doctrines of the United States to be brought into your country. Read this.
This is the book of Micah, chapter 2 and verse 10. Arise ye and depart, for this is not your rest.
Now, a lot of times we look at this individually, but as a people, this is what a lot of these people who've resisted the U.S.'s reign and rule are fighting against. They want to depart because they realize that there is no rest in America and her philosophies and her doctrines. There is no rest in that. Come on.
Because it is polluted.
Because there's something that comes with it. There's something that comes with it. It tastes good when you eat it, and then you have horrible indigestion and diarrhea, all types of stuff afterwards.
Come on, man.
It's polluted, and it's so polluted. Come on.
It shall destroy you.
It destroys any semblance of who and what you are as a person and as a people and as a country. Come on.
Even with a sore destruction.
Because you'll never get it back. You'll never get it back. Once America is in, you never get it back. You will never have autonomy again.
It say that in Psalms, Kevin say he put forth his hand like he had peace with you, but war is in his heart.
Right.
In his heart. Hey, they under the guise they are to help the people from other countries. How about helping the people from your country? We're one of the lowest. Our homeless rate, right? Our ghettos, right? Why don't you spend that money that you're spending out there that you could? $3.5 trillion was spent in Afghanistan. You know how that could have helped the people here in America? Think about that. I'm just saying it from that perspective. You're going out there for that? Nah, man.
And then everybody wants to scapegoat. Now it's Biden's fault.
Right.
It's all a crock, man.
Right.
It's a crock.
And he's freaking nuts, right? He
don't even know what the hell he's doing, so how's his fault?
Right. He's freaking nuts. He's another. Well, none of them really do. Just some speak more eloquently than others. That's all. All those presidents.
They're all puppets.
All those
people
talking
pulling
heads.
strings behind the scenes.
All of them are pulling strings. So everybody's blaming it on Biden, but Afghanistan has a history from 1979 that's never been resolved. And like I said, I'm not going to make this show about Afghanistan, but gosh, I had the
But
link
Trump
the
was
other
making
day.
plans to get him out too.
Yeah.
So what's the problem?
Yeah.
It's all a setup, bro. It's all a freaking setup.
And so they talk about 20 years in Afghanistan from when W. Bush was in there, but it's from 1979. It's really 40, 50 years?
Yeah.
Close to that? Yep. Let's go back to the documentary. So this is tanks. This is footage of U.S. tanks occupying DR, an illegal occupation based on them saying that they need to come in to deal with communism. But that's mad disrespectful. And then people want to debate who Edom is, who run this.
Come on, man.
Who run the world? You know they got us who run the world girls. Who run the world? U.S. The United States. Edom. Come on.
Completely trumped up excuse to invade the Dominican Republic and crush our democratic hopes. We've lived the consequences of that illegal invasion politically, economically, and in the bodies of the people who were wounded, the bodies of the people who were killed.
Look at this.
We've been living it for over 40 years.
Stop. So you see that he's saying that the impact is still there today. There's an older documentary, so when he says 40 years, it's longer than that. So don't let it fool you what you hear and what you see and all that stuff. He says that they've been living in the physical, because he said the bodies and everything, the political, and he said the economic impact. We've been living with that. Right? Go ahead.
There have been two major U.S. occupations of the Dominican Republic. The first was in 1916. The U.S. Army trained a new Dominican National Guard. It handpicked a former railway security officer, Rafael Trujillo, to lead that guard. And Trujillo then uses the power of the military to seize control of the government.
He was like the most horrific imagination of this terrifying dictator. He would disappear Dominican and American citizens and kill them with impunity.
He basically ruled the Dominican Republic for 30 years with absolute, total control. He routinely kidnapped and assaulted the wives, even of his supporters. And throughout his career, made it extremely easy for American companies to do business in the Dominican Republic.
Stop. You heard that? He said throughout his career. So they'll label this guy as a dictator, but where were they? Notice they didn't come back in until 65. He was assassinated in 61. So it was 30 years of Trujillo was okay, but the new guy comes in, and not that he was entirely much better. You have to understand, they back a guy until they don't want to back him no more. They set up they run these countries by proxy, and they give you that illusion of inclusion, that appearance that you have your sovereignty, but they're behind the scenes pulling strings.
And the only reason why they're pulling out, they got what they needed in there. Trust me. There's minerals and poppy in the poppy field.
In Afghanistan.
They got everything they depleted that. It took them 20 years to do it, but they took everything out of there that they needed.
Yep.
Trust me, make no mistake about it. Make no mistake about it. And the reason why they stay in Iraq and these other places, because there's still stuff there that they could use, which is the oil.
Hey, Kev, can I read the scripture?
Go ahead, bring it up.
This is the book of 1 Maccabees, chapter 8 and verse 13. Also that whom they would help to a kingdom, those reign, in whom again they displace. Finally, that they were greatly exalted.
That's what it's all about.
Well,
be the police of the world.
He says that those they help to a kingdom. Break it down. You got to break it down. I'm looking for something on here. Go ahead.
So it's nothing new under the sun, like the Bible says. So these is the Romans that's talking about, but this is the same people today. They will help you get a kingdom, and they'll turn you into the boogeyman. They do it all the time.
All the time. They did it with Noriega.
Right.
They did it with Noriega. Noriega was pushing drugs for them, and the whole thing, man. When he decided he didn't want to play ball with them, same thing. You don't want to play ball with them, man. They character assassinate you.
Yeah.
The whole bit.
Yep. Go ahead. Go back. I'll pull up the article in a minute that I want. Go ahead. Play it.
Easy for American companies to do business.
Stop. So that was the point I wanted to make. He made it easy. He was okay because he made it easy for American countries to do business with.
That's what they want Alcabiso Campos for.
Yes.
In Puerto Rico.
Right. Go ahead. Play.
Public, but was a savage dictator. Eventually, even the United States government could not stomach his methods of operation, so the CIA joined with disgruntled military officers to back his assassination.
Isn't that crazy? They put him in and they killed him.
Stop. So before we get into that, and this is all American-made stuff. End of tyranny. Dun, 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 dun. Dominicans hail new freedom.
Propaganda.
Right. Look, they even got Ed Hurley to that was the voice back then.
Of Ed Hurley.
That was the voice of Ed Hurley, big time back then.
Look, Universal International News. They made that name up.
Pull up the Banana Wars, right? Because I want to talk a little bit before we get into the 1916 occupation prior to Trujillo coming into power, because we'll have to run it back and talk about that. I want to talk about the Banana Wars piece, all right? I want to talk about the Banana Wars piece. So, remember, he said he made it easy for U.S. companies to do business. If you've been following us, all right, and if you haven't, you can go back and follow us and watch all the episodes, so long as YouTube keeps them up or Facebook. This is the same, it's different places and slightly different scenarios, but it's the same motivation in each of them. And these rulers that took over, for a time they were in the good graces of America, and until they weren't. And the main thing is that they allowed them unfettered access to the land, the disparity in land distribution, and the wealth of the land by these American countries. These American corporations. Excuse me. So, the Banana Wars. The Banana Wars were a series of conflicts that consisted of military occupation, police action, and intervention by the United States in Central America and the Caribbean between the end of the Spanish-American War in 1898 to the inception of the Good Neighbor policy in 1934. And it actually extended past that. They just named different acts and different laws that went with it. So, you know, they always playing with dates, ESO, and stuff like that, and how they do stuff, all right? So they called this particular period of American imperialism the Banana Wars. The military interventions were primarily carried out by the United States Marine Corps, who also developed a manual, the Small Wars Manual, based on their experiences. This is the same data that future dictators and the same playbook that a lot of the trained guys that trained with them used to do these military. Remember, I said Trujillo used the military to take over. They trained them with the playbook to how to do this. So it says, on occasion, the United States Navy provided gunfire support, and troops from the United States Army were also deployed. With the Treaty of Paris signed in 1898, control of Cuba, Puerto Rico, Guam, and the Philippines fell to the United States, surrendered from Spain. Following this, the United States proceeded to conduct military interventions in Cuba, Panama, Honduras, Nicaragua, Mexico, Haiti, and the Dominican Republic. These conflicts ended with the withdrawal of troops from Haiti in 1934 under President Franklin D. Roosevelt. So the Banana Wars specifically dealt with those named countries, but that mantra and their goal and their agenda, it just became a little softer in that it wasn't so much military occupation. It became more covert, with such as what you saw in Afghanistan from 79 all the way up through like the 90s before they started sending troops en masse over there.
Yeah, scroll down for a minute to the previous paragraph. I mean, up. Every single country that they military interventions in, that's all Israel. All Israelites. That's all prophecy. Deuteronomy 28.
Yep.
A nation from far with a fierce countenance. Okay, it's the same people. America is far from those countries, but also let's not forget that America is an extension of Britain.
Right.
And Spain and France.
Right. Excuse me. The term Banana Wars was popularized in 1983 by writer Lester D. Langley. Langley wrote several books on Latin American history and American intervention, including the United States and the Caribbean, 1900 to 1970, and the Banana Wars, an inner history of American empire, 1900 to 1934. His work regarding the Banana Wars encompasses the entire United States tropical empire. So it's known historically as a tropical empire. They had a tropical empire because, remember, it was largely driven by agriculture and fruit, which overtook the Western Hemisphere, spanning both of Roosevelt presidencies. The term was popularized through this writing and portrayed the United States as a police force sent to reconcile these warring tropical countries, lawless societies, and corrupt politicians, essentially establishing U.S. reign over tropical trade. Get me the one about popular persuasions, all right? Because that's what that what we just read there, that's what that's talking about. That's how they're able to justify them coming into these places.
This is the book of 1 Ezra, chapter 5 and verse 73. And by their secret plots...
Their secret plot was to take all the land by, not necessarily like they did during slavery and colonialism, right? They realized it was too burdensome. It was too vast of an empire to support and have all those mouths to feed and then benefits to come with it. Because, right, the United States during this time period had evolved. Yes, they were still Jim Crow and things like that, but slavery was abolished. So they couldn't go in there and literally put people in fetters of iron down there. So their secret plot was to continue this reign, to continue this free or low-cost labor, which would amount to almost free, and expand their empire, right? It went from fruit to then cotton and tobacco and things like that, and then back to fruit when Spain was kicked out. Sugar. That's the only reason that they tempered themselves a little bit, was because Spain was there. Once Spain was gone, this is when they came up with that Monroe Doctrine, which essentially they named themselves the police of the Western Hemisphere. So they created these secret plot, and their secret plot was not what they say it was.
That's right.
Which we're going to read now. What they say it was the popular persuasion. Their secret plot was to remain the dominant force economically and with their military might in the region. All right, read it from the top again.
Book of 1 Esdras, chapter 5 and verse 73. And by their secret plots and popular persuasions.
And so you see, it's two opposing things here. They have their secret plots, which only the elite, the few elect amongst them know what the real agenda is.
Right.
And the popular persuasion is how they rally public support behind these agendas. So it says their secret plots and popular persuasions help them what?
And commotions.
And commotions. So they'll say, oh, the people are suffering human rights violations.
Right.
They're so cruel to the people down there. They're despotic. He's a dictator. Come on.
They hindered the finishing of the building.
Right. So this is something that it's in their trick bag. And the hindering of the finishing here was they did not want they saw that these countries could become more powerful than them if they would become direct trading partners with their European counterparts.
If we let them alone, Cap.
Yep. They cannot let us alone. This goes why it says that they cannot let us go. We're pressed together and they cannot let us go. So now the popular persuasion was when it says the United States was portrayed as a police force sent to reckon out warring tropical countries, lawless societies, corrupt politicians. We're going to go in and clean them up. What did Trump say? Shithole countries? Essentially establishing U.S. reign over tropical trade. That was the secret plot. They wanted U.S. reign over tropical trade. And they used those popular persuasions and commotions, all right, to get themselves in there. Let's continue. U.S. motivations for the conflicts were largely economic and militaristic. The term banana wars was coined much later in order to cast motivations as almost exclusively for the preservation of U.S. commercial interest in the region. So at the time, it wasn't known as the banana wars. It was known as just them intervening to help in these countries, all right? Most prominently, the U.S. was advancing economic, political, and military interests in order to maintain its sphere of influence and to secure the Panama Canal, which opened in 1940. They knew what was going on. They knew it. You got something?
No.
Oh, okay. You got excited. I don't want to mess up your flow. You bring something out in spirit, right? So, and we haven't even gotten into Panama and the whole thing around that. It was a lease, and then somehow they did some freaking stuff down there. That's another interesting thing in and of itself, how they wound up still having control of the Panama Canal. They said, we can never not have control of the Panama Canal. This is insane.
No, because there was the wording that they put in that contract they were able to get. If they can't protect it, we can come in.
Right. That was it.
But they destroyed the Panamanian army.
Right.
The hell is so that's why they can't protect it. You see the evil?
Yo, I'm telling you, this guy is polluted. It's a sword destruction, right? They made that deal. Yo,
their thoughts are deep, man.
And they got him. So their motivation was their sphere of influence, and they wanted to secure the Panama Canal. They said, oh, we need this thing. Whoever owns this is going to control commerce in the region, right? The United States had recently built the Panama Canal in order to promote global trade and to project its naval power. U.S. companies such as the United Fruit Company had also had financial stakes in the production of bananas, tobacco, sugarcane, and other commodities throughout the Caribbean, Central America, and Northern South America. Interventions. So now we're going to look at their interventions. These are their occupations. There's a whole history of them here. Panama we haven't touched yet. Panama. U.S. interventions in the Isthmus go back to the 1846 Mallarino-Bidlack Treaty and intensified after the so-called Watermelon Riot of 1856. In 1885, U.S. military intervention gained a mandate with the construction of the Panama Canal. The building process collapsed in bankruptcy, mismanagement, and disease in 1889, but resumed in the 20th century. In 1903, Panama seceded from the Republic of Colombia, backed by the U.S. government. So, their hands were all in that. They said, oh, wait a second. if this is a newer country, they're going to need somebody to guide them. We're going to get more beneficial terms to control the Panama Canal without having to necessarily come in and just basically annex the country, right? Because Russia recently did that. Didn't they annex Crimea or something like that not a few years ago, right?
Yeah, Russia did that,
yeah. And at that time, that would have been seen as very controversial. So they were trying to go about it in a different manner to not have to expend military resource to that extent, all right? So it says they were backed by the U.S. government in seceding from the Republic of Colombia. During the 1,000 Days War, the Hay-Ponceforte Treaty allowed the U.S. to construct and control the Panama Canal. In 1903, the United States established sovereignty over a Panama Canal zone. You know what sovereignty means? This area, the rest of the country's yours. But this here, this is ours. It's like that's like their embassy.
This
American soil.
Right. This canal where we can make billions and billions of dollars from, and you can't, is ours.
That's exactly what they did. They
heard what your stinking country, right? Like Trump said.
They thought their rest was going to be, the United States is going to help us out of the kindness of their heart to secede from the Republic of Colombia. And then they said, okay, this is the price to pay, though.
It says it in the contract. If you cannot maintain, if you cannot protect the canal, we can take over.
I remember something petty like that, too. Yeah,
telling you, bro.
I remember that.
Who the hell would sign that?
And there's a lot to go into there with those treaties and things like that, but that's we're talking about Dominican Republic, right? I'm just going through the Banana Wars briefly. Spanish-American War. U.S. forces seized Cuba and Puerto Rico from Spain in 1898. The end of the Spanish-American War led to the start of the Banana Wars. Cuba. In December 1899, U.S. President William McKinley declared Leonard Wood, a United States Army general, to have supreme power in Cuba. The U.S. conquered Cuba from the Spanish Empire. It was occupied by the U.S. from 1898 to 1902, under Wood as its military governor, and again from 1906 to 1909, 1912 and 1917 to 1922, subject to the terms of the Cuban-American Treaty of Relations in 1903 until 1934. In 1903, the U.S. took a permanent lease on the Guantanamo Bay neighborhood. How do you... a permanent lease.
Gangsters, man.
That's what they did to the Panama Canal, though. Dominican Republic. Action in 1903, 1904, the Santo Domingo affair. In 1914, naval forces engaged in battles in the city of Santo Domingo, occupied by the U.S. from 1916 to 1924. Damn near 10 years, or 8 years, they occupied the Dominican Republic. Nicaragua, occupied by the U.S. almost continuously from 1912 to 1933, after intermittent landings and naval bombardments in the prior decades. The U.S. had troops in Nicaragua to prevent its leader from creating conflicts with U.S. interests in the country. So you see how they'll tell you it was to pacify the wars and give stability to corrupt governments and everything, but they tell on themselves if you really look at it. They wanted their U.S. interests protected in the country.
That's the smoke screen, Cap.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. That's the popular persuasion. That's the commotions. The Blue Jackets and Marines were there for about 15 years. The U.S. claimed they wanted Nicaragua to elect good men who ostensibly would not threaten to disrupt U.S. interests. That's what they meant by good men. The guys that are going to play ball with us. They're not going to disrupt what we're trying to do here. We read a ton about Mexico. I'm not going to read about that. But look, Haiti. Haiti occupied by the U.S. from 1915 to 1934. So while they were occupying the Dominican Republic, they were also almost simultaneously and for a slightly longer period occupying Haiti, which led to the creation of a new Haitian constitution in 1917 that instituted changes that included an end to the prior ban on land ownership by non-Haitians. Right? So there was a ban. Haiti had a ban that if you were not Haitian, you could not own land. As part of their help, the United States' help in Haiti, they ended a ban of that land ownership by non-Haitians, meaning now American corporations can own land in Haiti.
The hell is this?
This period included the first and second cacao wars. All right. And then you have Honduras, where the United Fruit Company and Standard Fruit Company dominated the country's key banana export sector and associated land holdings and railways. So insertion of American troops, look at all these years, 1903, 1907, 1911, 1912, 1919, 1924, and 1925. You know what? Let's read that in Habakkuk 2, because I know we bring that out a lot, but my gosh, talk about not keeping at home. The writer O. Henry coined the term Banana Republic in 1904 to describe Honduras, because for all intents and purposes, it belonged to the United States. Go ahead, read that.
This is the book of Habakkuk, chapter 2 and verse 5. Yea, also, because he transgresseth by wine. He is a proud man.
You know the wine? That's the popular persuasions. That's the commotions. Right? Because wine is good. It's disarming, right? You're in a better mood if I ply you with some alcohol first. Right? So the alcohol here is their philosophies, their doctrines. Oh, we're going to clean this up. We're going to help you with this. Right? So it says, he transgresseth by wine. Come on.
He is a proud man.
He is a proud man. He's so proud that he said, well, it's up to us to be the police of this hemisphere. We can't let these people make their own decisions for themselves. It's going to interfere with our interest. Come on.
Neither keepeth at home.
He don't keep at home. Look at all these so-called what they call interventions. That's a nice way to say invasion.
Right.
It's a nice way to say occupation. That's like they come up into your house and say, hey, you're not running your house right. You're not raising your kids correctly, whatnot. Let's step in the door, and we're going to stay here. Oh, go ahead. Come on.
Who enlarges his desire as hell.
Meaning it don't matter the cost. Whoever has to suffer, whoever has to die, whatever countries need to remain broken or be broken down, his desire is to rule all nations and all lands. And remember, we went over that when we went over that blessing. It goes back spiritually to Esau being upset that he did not get the blessing of that rulership. So what did he say? He goes, I'm going to take it by force. I'm going to take it by a helpful nature. Come on.
And is as death and cannot be satisfied.
So captivity, murder, destruction. And it says the funny thing is he enlarges that desire, but it has no upper limit. It says it cannot be satisfied. It cannot be satisfied. Is that in that verse?
But gathereth unto him all nations.
So because it can't be satisfied, this is why he gathered all these nations unto him. It's not just the embassies and all these different countries and stuff like that. It started here in the Western Hemisphere, which makes sense strategically. Hey, they're our neighbors. They're right here. We're going to gather them unto us, all nations. They realized that they could not rule as a whole republic, the whole continent, not openly. They couldn't make the whole Western Hemisphere an empire, not on paper.
Right.
But in their own way, through their influences, it's as if they're ruling all of this.
You brought it out, Cap, the secret plots.
That's the secret plot. Enlarging his desires, and it cannot be satisfied. That it on that?
Last part. And heapeth unto him all people.
And he heapeth unto him all people. So it says other Latin American nations were influenced or dominated by American economic policies and or commercial interests to the point of coercion. Theodore Roosevelt declared the Roosevelt Corollary to the Monroe Doctrine in 1904, asserting the right of the United States to intervene to stabilize the economic affairs of states in the Caribbean and Central. He said it was a right.
That's pride right there.
That's his pride. That's his pomp. He says it's our right to intervene. The hell with your sovereignty. It's our right to intervene. If they were unable to pay their international debts. From 1909 to 1913, President William Howard Taft and his Secretary of State Philander C. Knox asserted a more peaceful and economic dollar diplomacy foreign policy, although that too was backed by force, as in Nicaragua. You got something? Okay. American fruit companies. Real quick, we'll read this and then we'll jump back to the documentary. The first decades of Honduras history is marked by instability in terms of politics and economy. Indeed, 3 armed conflicts occurred between independence and the rise to power of the Carrias government. This instability was due in part to the American involvement in the country. You're blocking me out with that. Okay. The first company that concluded an agreement with the Honduras government was the Vaccaro Brothers Company, which later was known as the Standard Fruit Company. The Cuyamel Fruit Company then followed their lead. United Fruit Company also contracted with the government through its subsidiaries, Tela Railroad Company and Trujillo Railroad Company. Contract between the Honduran government and the American companies most often involved exclusive rights to a piece of land in exchange for building railroads in Honduras. So they traded something that had more infinite value for something that would break down and need maintenance, because land is always desirable, almost always appreciates. Railroads, while might have been needed for their infrastructure, requires maintenance and money to maintain, so on and so forth.
Now you owe more than that, Cat.
Yep. And right, so remember, it said that if they can't pay their debts, they come in. They indebted them.
And how do you have debt and you have all these resources? That makes no sense.
No, it makes zero sense. Because all these countries that we spoke about, they're not poor, impoverished countries. Only in that the policies that the United States have put in there has kept them this way. But they have the resources, they have the means to be supremely wealthy. Just because they, listen, so much raw materials from natural resources, gold, minerals, textiles, especially agriculture. Agriculture is so largely driven by Central South America and the Caribbean still. So it says, however, banana producers in Central America, including Honduras, were scourged by Panama disease, a soil-borne fungus that decimated production over large regions. Typically, companies would abandon the decimated plantations and destroy the railroads and other utilities that they had used along with the plantation. So the exchange of services between the government and the companies was not always respected. So if they couldn't keep the land because, right, remember, you know what that goes into? The curse on Cain. Let's get that in Genesis. How the land wouldn't 3:14, I think. 4:14. Is that it? No. 11. No. 12.
Book of Genesis, chapter 4 and verse 12. When thou tillest the ground, it shall not henceforth yield unto thee her strength. A fugitive and a vagabond shalt thou be in the earth.
So the Most High put like what they call Panama disease, a blight on the soil there. And when that would happen, they would not keep their end of the bargain. Talk about, you know, like a little kid that like, oh, well, if I can't play with it, you can't eat it, and he breaks the toy or something like that. It said they would destroy the railroads and other utilities that they use. That was the barter for them to have that right to the land. And when it wouldn't work, they would destroy the utilities and the land before they left.
And you show you a hypocrite because you just said you came to help us.
Yep. So the ultimate goal of the contracts for the companies was control of the banana trade from production to distribution. The companies would finance guerrilla fighters, presidential campaigns, and governments. These are those corporations. According to Rivera and Carranza, the indirect participation of American companies in the country's armed conflicts worsened the situation. The presence of more dangerous and modern weapons allowed more dangerous warfare among the factions. In British Honduras, modern-day Belize, the situation was significantly different. Despite the fact that United Fruit Company was the sole exporter of bananas there, and the company was also attempting to manipulate the local government, the country did not suffer the instability and armed conflicts its neighbors experienced, probably because the United States didn't have as much to gain there. All right, let's go back to the documentary and run it back just a little bit, where it talks about the interest and all that Trujillo was good with them for. Go back a little. It's past that. A little bit past that. There we go, right about there.
And assaulted the wives, even of his supporters. And throughout his career, made it extremely easy for American companies to do business in the Dominican Republic.
Stop. So that made him one of those good men that we were just reading about, because he was about their interest. Right, so he was a good man because he allowed their interests, even though they trained him in torture and disappearing people means people were abducted and killed, never to be found again. Come on.
But was a savage dictator. Eventually, even the United States government could not stomach his methods of operation, so the CIA joined with disgruntled military officers to back his assassination.
For the first time in 30 years, the people of the Dominican Republic are breathing the sweet air of liberty, and the streets are jammed in celebration.
Hey, stop. You know what they do? They create a problem, reaction, solution. They created this demon, right? So that now they come in as the heroes and look everybody applauding them.
Mm-hmm.
Same exact thing that's going on with Cuba now. Go ahead.
Is he Israel?
Who?
The Trujillo guy?
Yeah, but so was Bautista. So, you know.
Yeah, I know. I think, damn, there was one I brought out, and was it in Jeremiah or Isaiah a couple weeks ago? It talks about those people that are of our own people that would push their agenda and stuff.
Remember, you had Jason,
right?
Wretched Jason. That was our people, and they gave him a position.
Right. Yeah, I think it's easier for us to say, oh, he must have not been our people, but
no, there's evil in our people.
Yeah.
The scripture talks about that.
Like you said,
Again,
Jason was that ungodly wretch.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about, Cap. They say their own shepherds pity them now.
Mm-hmm. Right. Go ahead.
That's how Merengue came about.
They made a song out of it. They called it They made
In 1963, you have the election of Juan Bosch. He was a liberal, a social democrat, who attempted to institute new social reforms. But the Bosch government didn't last for very long. Only a few months into his term in office, there was a military coup. That military coup in turn spurred a popular insurrection that led to the U.S. invasion of the Dominican Republic in 1965.
So stop. So now they invaded again. We're not going to be able to cover it on tonight's show. We're going to go back and talk about the first invasion. And then we'll lead up and talk about this next invasion the next time we go over this, all right? But so it gave them opportunity to come back in after a few months that he was, and you best believe that they were involved in that. We just read how the companies would fund guerrilla fighters to try to destabilize governments. That's what I'm saying. It's proxy wars that they would do. That's the same thing that they did in Afghanistan. That's the same thing they did in Afghanistan in 1979. You were going to say something? You're going to read something? I'm going to look for something. One of y'all say something. I want to look for something.
Listen, it's the same MO, man. Okay? That's the MO. Problem, reaction, solution. They create the problem, see how we react, and then they come in as the heroes. That's just that's what we're seeing now, man. This man is a devil, man. He is a devil. He is demon. And somebody put here, America's got a lot of nerve saying that his torture methods are too extreme. You damn right. That's a true statement.
Right.
True statement, man. Because the stuff that they do behind the scenes, hey, weren't they brought out because of waterboarding? If those of you don't know what waterboarding is, look it up. But I'll give you a quick overview. They put a towel around your head and they just dunk you with water, and you get the feeling like you're drowning.
They said that's the worst too.
Terrible.
They showed it in Safe House with Denzel.
Yeah, right? Right. They did. Yeah, they did. You're right. Right. What was the name of the movie? Safe House, right?
Safe House.
With Denzel Washington. Dude, they're freaking evil, man. That look on the and I know it was the Trujillo that did it, but it was through America created that monster.
Right.
Okay? His pupils were dilated. He looked like that picture. Somebody was coming to do something to him. You saw the look on his face. The guy that was in the chair strapped up?
Yep.
Yeah.
Those eyes were eyes of terror.
Yes.
He was terrified.
Yes.
His pupils were tiny and his eyes were huge because he knew that look at it. He knew that was the end.
You're right about that.
Think about that.
Damn, I got to look for I had the other thing up. I can't find it now. But my point was, when you look up like the Soviet-Afghan War and the United States influence in there, and it was the same type of thing, right? So what they did was they wanted to not allow the annexation of that. They wanted to maintain their interest there. Like Cap was bringing out, these last 20 years that were there and the agreements that were made with American companies and stuff like that, they mined their resources. They did all that stuff. They made a killing over those 20 years. It's the same type of thing that they've done historically. It works for them. They have a playbook for this stuff.
Yep.
We just read that they have a playbook that they wrote in 1921 on how to deal with this type of stuff.
Yeah, that manual they got.
That manual that they got.
You know when that playbook was written? Back in Genesis with Tubal Cain.
You're right about that.
They already knew. It was in their spirit already to be evil.
Because that's their blessing. So, of course, they're so diabolical. They're so evil with it. It's because that's the blessing that they got.
To show you how
That's
evil
their
they
lane.
are. Yeah. He killed his brother.
Hey, Cap.
Yeah.
The devil said, y'all are damn wicked to our people. Y'all wicked and more wicked than me.
That's true. You're right about that.
Yeah.
Says we are wicked. Says we've shown the wicked ones our ways. Go ahead. Go back a little bit because I stopped you. I didn't want to lose context. Just a little. We're almost done here for tonight. When you're ready.
Was that there was enormous repression against the Bosch forces, killings on an almost daily basis. So the United States then began allowing large numbers of Dominican former rebels to come to the United States as a way, again, of using migration as a safety valve. Thousands of Dominicans started coming to New York City.
Stop real quick. So that's the same thing that's kind of happening in Afghanistan now. They said that they're like airlifting a bunch of these people out. It says that's their safety valve. So they'll complain about these migratory things, but their answer to it after they destabilize countries is, all right, we'll allow some in until they don't want to allow it anymore, right? And then they'll cut them off, and then that's when you have kind of this border crisis that they're talking about, so on and so forth. Not realizing, remember when way back when we first started this series, it really centers around why the migration here is such a big deal. And it's because, by and large, their policies from the Banana Wars, the imperialistic policies, the Monroe Doctrine, and all the other things, all the mischief that they framed by laws that they wrote and decrees that they've made, which really only apply here. They make it seem like these decrees have weight in other sovereign countries. They make it have weight, but they'll pass laws here which basically justifies their actions abroad. All of that causes that destabilization in these countries, and this is why people want to or need to leave there.
Right.
Because of the issues that they've left there. Go ahead.
Well, they said we're coming to the United States, whatever that meant. I thought we were just going up the road to some mystical place. When I finally saw a map in kindergarten of how far we had traveled, I remember being not only astonished, but literally terrified. My father was a standard kind of crazy Latino military guy who would check his children's hands and their shoes and their clothes and their hair before we left the house. I mean, we had to tie our shoes a certain way. I lived in what I call the little dictatorship, the little dictatorship of our house. When I immigrated to New Jersey, it was a very crazy time. I immigrated in 1974, a few months before the fall of Saigon. This was not a place that was very welcoming. I found myself facing a tremendous amount of racism and bigotry, but not just from like white Americans, from black Americans, and from Latinos. I think if every immigrant child in this country was allowed to tell the real emotional truth of their experience here, people in the United States would discover that we actually make immigration a more horrific experience than it needs to be. And I feel that as a country, we're in a dream where there are no mistakes, there is no evil, we are always good, we hurt no one. You know, you can't grow if you admit no mistakes.
All those hundreds and thousands that sneak into our country that could be diseased.
Illegal immigrants are attacking our culture and our way of life. They are the most extreme elements in this country want open borders.
The process of migration transforms people so that they end up being not only strangers in the land they've come to, they also become estranged to some degree from the land they left. Migration creates this limbo itself of a new identity that is ni aquí ni allá, neither here nor there.
Trujillo protected U.S. sugar interests. That's why they allowed him to stay in power. Go ahead, I'm reading. This is by arresting and torturing Dominican labor organizers. That's who these guys that he was torturing. At the time of his assassination, he was one of the richest men in the world. More than 1.5 million Dominicans live in the U.S.
All the people.
That's it on that seg. I forgot what country's next we're gonna go over. What is that? I don't know on the map. We're going to Central America when we're done with DR. Let me pull something out here. Let me see if this is what I want. Right. So he made a point, like with migration and stuff like that, we wind up as strangers, he said, and we wind up as you're not fully part of where you migrated to, and you're kind of disenfranchised from where you originally were from.
He said, "Nor here nor there."
Yeah, you're nor here nor there. And that is the case with our people. Even in these supposed countries, right? Because that's the blessings that are on this side of the world, right? I think Deacon Nathan had done something where, like, he's doing that on his show, like the two promised lands, right? Going into that, in the blessing, there was land here that was promised as well to us, right? But because of the way things are set up in these countries, you got to look at it two ways. It's us serving our penance, our curses, right? Being under the curses for being rebellious, and at the same time, it's the Most High keeping faithful to what He prophesied would be our fate. So let me get Hebrews 11 and 13.
That's right.
Hebrews 11 and 13.
This is the book of Hebrews, chapter 11 and verse 13.
Read out.
These all died in faith, not having received the promises, but having seen them afar off.
Right, so he's talking about Abraham, Noah, everybody he speaks about when he starts going into faith and how their actions were dictated by their faith, right? And he says they all died not having received the promises, but having seen them afar off, right? Through the prophecy, what the Bible promises for the future of our people as Israelites. Come on.
And were persuaded of them.
And those prophecies that they saw and those promises persuaded them to have this mentality. Come on.
And embraced them.
Come on.
And confess that they were strangers and pilgrims on the earth.
It's part of the curses. It's part. Anytime we try to claim this present world for us, whether that's in your country in Dominican Republic, Puerto Rico, Colombia, Mexico, whatever it might be, all right, you're not in the right mindset, all right? To embrace it is to constantly acknowledge that you are here for a temporary stay. A pilgrim is a sojourner. It's somebody that it's not their place, but they're wandering in that place. And it says that those who had this magnificent faith that you read about in Hebrews 11, they embrace these promises, because if you don't embrace them to the point where you can acknowledge that we and our people are strangers and pilgrims of the earth, then you're saying this is your rest. That you're saying that you want to uphold this place and this time and this corrupt, with all the foundations of it being out of course. Because to walk in this truth is to really acknowledge what he says in this next verse. Come on.
For they that say such things declare plainly.
So when you say that you're a stranger and a pilgrim in the earth, what you're really declaring plainly, come on,
that they seek a country.
That you seek a country. So you have to understand, as this history comes out, that none of these places where we may have been born, where our families are, that we rep on a census form or a job application, right? Or at one time we waved the flag and all types of pride, not fully understanding what that pride might have been in, all right? What you're saying is that this is your rest and this is your place. And you're not acknowledging our true purpose in the earth right now, which is to serve time in this wilderness, to rehearse those righteous acts to get us back, right? Because all this comes out historically because it's to guide our people to embrace this, bethink yourself, and then repent. And then keep your identity, embrace your identity, grab hold of it again, and keep these laws, statutes, and commandments so that then we can have that place where we don't have this corruptness that we've been going over for weeks on end in places that are supposed to be our own, supposed to be our countries. Doesn't make sense. Doesn't make sense. You got anything, Cap?
No. Good.
All right, so we're gonna pick up with a little more detail on Trujillo next week. It might not be the whole show; it might just be like maybe part of it, and then we'll keep moving along. We actually have made pretty good progress on the documentary. I also have some excerpts from the book. The book approaches it a little different than the documentary, and Laws will continue to edify, and it's important that you like and share all this stuff because we're hitting on different Northern Kingdom countries, right? And the stuff that's going on. So this stuff should trigger like responses from some of our people, right? Now is those last days when there's so much going on that it's almost a little easier to be able to see and connect the dots, right? Because of all the turmoil and stuff that's going on. Don't forget to tune in. Saturday's gonna be a replay. All right, right? We're gonna replay. Okay, all right. We have we'll be on next week, Power Hour Plus. All right, every Saturday we have the Power Hour. All right, that's 11 a.m. Arizona time, and that one's quick and dirty. All right, we go in for an hour on that, and continue to like, share, support, subscribe, help us reach them 10,000 subscribers. And guess what? Once we reach 10,000, we're gonna go for the next milestone and the next milestone. All right. So with that, we say shalom.
We got the nations running scared because Israel is back. All lies on us because we keeping them laws. When the Lord will return, Babylon will fall. Precepts solid. We got them on lock. God's chosen people with Christ as our rock. Israel is back. We back. Israel is back. We back. You heathen, get ready for our whip to crack.
Damn.